and welcome to the Big C Show, our first episode here, episode one. And I have got an amazing guest, the most, the most enthusiastic Panther fan, other than me. We have Muscle Fan for those of you who have gone to the Florida Panther games and maybe have seen him around. Um, Wow. Thanks again, Rob,
No,
to,
thank you.
for
Thank you for
having
having me.
for coming on the show. You know, what a year! What a year being a Panther fan, especially with all those hardships we've had throughout the years. Um,
Absolutely.
I've been a fan since 1996. I remember my first year. I moved to Florida around 92, 93. So I was like maybe 6 years old, and I didn't really know any other sport other than football.
Mhm.
My dad was a big Cowboy fan, and of course, that's how I became a Cowboy fan. Especially in the '90s, they were America's team.
Oh yeah.
And one day, Rob Van Beesbrook just came to our school, and you know, considering him being a goalie, I didn't know he was that short, but um, he was actually really cool to talk to as a kid. He really inspired me to to be the best that I can be, and
That's awesome.
ever since that run, like the '96 run. My eyes stayed glued to the TV. I mean, what a
Sure.
year! Year of the
Yep. Yep.
rat. I can see the rats on your shoulders. That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. Um, so for those of you that are tuning into our show, to my show, um, tell us a little bit about who is Muscle Fan.
Well, I thank you again for having me.
You're welcome.
I moved down here as well in '93. Same thing. Same year the Panthers came. I moved down from Jersey. So I may have been a Devils follower for a little while. But I've been season ticket holder for 20 years. And I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, I just decided to do something when they made the playoffs. And, back then it was very rare that they made the playoffs. So they made the playoffs and I decided to dress up. And the reaction I got was crazy. Everybody was going nuts. The fans were really into it. I'm like, oh, I love this. I'm going to keep doing it. And unfortunately, the playoffs didn't last very long for us. So I wore it two times, three times, and then
So you mean you started this back in '96?
not 96, probably I don't know, maybe 8 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was a Halloween costume. I actually went dressed as a muscle head, like a steroid guy, and I had syringes hanging from my belt, and I just had the muscle suit. And I had the suit. And I'm like, my buddy's like, let's go to the playoffs, and I went. I came dressed like that, and he's like, "You're gonna go like that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Throw a Panther shirt on, and
Why not?
everybody it went crazy. So I was like, "All right, this is cool. I love this." And every year I just started adding more stuff to it. I added the rats and the chain, and just a little bit, every year. And then luckily, last year I got to add this
There we
guy.
go. There we go.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup
So,
champion
oh
fella.
yeah.
I like it.
So,
That's kind of
yeah.
like the same one Mathew Tkachuk has, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. But
Nice.
yeah, so then of course the last couple seasons we've been in the playoffs so much, it was kind of a okay, I guess I'm gonna wear this every game. And now during the regular season, I've been wearing it and everyone loves it, so I just keep doing it.
I love it. I love it, man. So, one question, real quick. What did your wife think when you went to the game like that? Did she
she
go with you?
no, not to that one, no, but she's gone before.
Okay.
She actually is one of those like if I go to a Kiss concert, she knows I'm gonna dress like Gene Simmons and she paints my face. So she's like
Oh,
kind of
okay.
kind of expected type of thing. She's really a good kind of behind the scenes, like gives me a little bit of a push. She's not one to
That's
be like,
awesome.
"Oh, you can't do that." She'll be like, "Oh, that's awesome. What you should do is do this." Blah blah blah. So yeah, so she actually helps me with the costume. She's like, "Oh my god, yeah, you get the belt, do this, do that."
That's so
So yeah,
awesome.
she's actually very supportive. So
That's
it's
awesome.
fun.
That's always great when you have the
Yeah,
support system around you.
yeah.
Um, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, the
Um,
only thing she didn't realize is when I took her to the game, and then she didn't realize how many people were going to be like, "Hey, can you take a picture of us? Hey, can you take a picture of us?" She's just like, "All right, I guess I'm just going to carry your keys and take pictures of you all night."
oh my gosh. Wow, that's awesome. That's great. So kind of like getting into like the muscle suit and stuff, we kind of like saw a couple video clips of you before kind of before I kind of like got to know who you were. I saw some video clips of you, and one of your inspirations to um being who you are and the person you are, as if we can kind of share here, is your son Dominic.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us how big of a Panther fan was he, and um, how a big of a support was he for you in doing this as well?
Well, yeah, Dom was everything to us. So we did everything with him. So when we went to the games, he came to the games, and by default, he had no choice. He was going to be a Panther fan. So he just, he had special needs, and he was in a wheelchair, so nonverbal. He had a lot of seizure disorder, stuff like that. So it was a challenge for him. But that right there is the epitome of as soon as that goal horn goes off, you get the smile. So
I
I'm like,
love
all
it.
right, that's it. So I'm like, come on, you guys got to score. So every time they scored, that horn went off, and he just gave me the
Just brought
smile, and
that
I'm like,
smile on his face. That's so cool.
so great. And yeah, so we bring him to the games with us, as many games as we could. And unfortunately, he had surgery last April, and had complications afterwards, and he passed away. He
So
actually
sorry to
passed
hear that.
away. Thank you. The night of Bobrovsky's big save, the last thing we did, we brought him home, and there's that smile. We brought him home, and we watched that game, the playoff game, and that's after the game he passed away.
Was that the Boston series
That was
or
Tampa
the
Bay.
Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Verhage scored the overtime goal.
Yeah, that
Bob
was
made that ridiculous save.
that's probably
Uh,
one of the best saves I've seen in person. I
Yeah,
still remember it to this day. What a
yeah,
series! What a game!
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So that was so. After that, it was kind of tough. I wasn't sure if I would be going to the other playoff games or how I'd feel about going. And that's Dexter. He's a big fan as well. Um,
the
and
jersey fits well.
and they the people at the arena, people I just I barely knew, that knew me from Instagram or just heard on the news what happened. They were great. I mean, people were giving me hugs and support, and the dancers and DJ Genesis uh, and Gabby, like everybody was just so supportive because they've met Dom several times, so they knew who he was, and they knew what we were going through. And when we were in the hospital, I missed some games, and they actually sent like a little video card, get well type of thing.
Wow.
And then when I the first game back, the girls all came and gave me like a digital card with a video from everybody in the organization with their condolences, and it was just really heartwarming. Like that, everybody kind of reached out, and even the owners, stopped me in the concourse and condolences, and they actually sent us the Mathew Tkachuk jersey that's up there. Is uh, just one day in the mail, I got a bouquet of flowers and it was a note from the Panthers organization. Just Dom was born on the 19th, so 19 was his number, and yeah, so just Doug Sifu and the whole organization was just phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about the Panther organization and what they've done. I thought um, since the beginning, when Venny Viola bought the team,
Hmm.
hands down, class
Yep.
ownership.
Yeah, the culture definitely changed. It's
right?
very fan friendly.
And it's something that this team needed, especially with a lot of the loyal fans. A lot of speculations throughout the years, hard times where a lot of people wanted the owners to sell the team. Let's
Hmm.
sell them to Quebec. Let's
Yeah, I mean,
Florida,
every season you heard about how we're going to Quebec. You know.
or how Florida doesn't deserve a
Hmm.
hockey team. But
Right.
then you look at Tampa Bay and they won back to back championships,
Sure.
and they won. I believe they got three of them. So it's like, well, if they can do it, why can't we? We just needed the right ownership, and I think Benny Viola, Doug Sipu, they've done a tremendous job on getting the culture changed here.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed with this team.
Well, that
Um,
and Bill Zito
Bill
just
Zito.
came in. He's not afraid to make moves. I mean, you win the President's Trophy, and the guy trades one of your core players. You know, and in one of the boldest moves, even I was like, "Wait, we're trading Hubie and Uyghur?" And
I was gonna
after the
that was one of the questions I was gonna ask. Let's kind of get into that. What did you think of the trade when Jonathan Huberdeau? Because he was a fan favorite.
sure,
Personally, I love Jonathan Huberdeau.
hmm,
Um, on and off the ice, he was. I remember several times I've met him at the um, it was at the Hooters, I believe, back in when Hooters used to be at the Hard Rock and
right,
Casino
right,
back in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
day. Um, he ran into me one day. We were all having dinner, me and my friends, and he literally came up to us at the table and he's like, "Hey, I remember you. You're Caesar at the hockey game." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I want to introduce you to my family." Like,
that's
he
awesome.
literally got out of his way and introduced me to his family. Like,
Right, right,
he didn't have to do that. And I
sure,
think that's one thing I love about hockey players compared to other athletes. They're just so loyal and down to earth.
right,
They're just normal people. But
yeah.
he was such a fan favorite. What did you think when you first heard the trade?
I thought it was kind of. I mean, the Huberto part. I'm like, okay, he just had 100 and something points, so he had the best season of his career. And I'm like, well, Kachuk also had the best season, but I mean, Kachuk played in Calgary, so I didn't know as much about him. But I mean, I knew who he was. I know he was a superstar. But I'm like, then we're throwing in Uyghur, who's also had one of the career seasons too. And I'm like, and we also threw in, I think, a prospect and a pick, and I was like,
Yeah.
I it was just a bold move. But from what everybody was saying about Kachuk, he was one of those gritty guys that you need for the playoffs, and Zito knew what he was doing. I mean,
And I
I mean,
think
obviously,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we needed. We needed like because we did acquire Sam Bennett before that. We
hmm,
acquired Carter Verhage. We acquired Sam Reinhart. So, we needed that edge, that sandpaper, that grit.
sure,
Somebody that, I guess the best way to say it is somebody that hated losing more than liking to win. And I
right.
think he fits that culture. And
And
he
that's the
changed
type of
everything.
guy that any team is going to hate to play against because he's a pest, and it throws people off their game, and he's just great at it.
He
You
might
know.
not be the best player on the team,
Hmm.
but he's good enough that you can't win without him.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think he made Barkov a better player because he took the pressure off Barkov. You know.
And I think you kind of seen the way he played that the first year they went to the Stanley Cup against Vegas. Barkov was by far the toughest player on the ice. He had
Right.
more hits.
You
He
never see
had
him hitting anyone, and all of
no,
a
and
sudden, yeah,
he just his whole mentality changed on how to play in the playoffs. And Matthew Tkachuk had a great deal of it was a great um impact on that.
sure.
Um so yeah, I mean I honestly was upset because I did love Jonathan Huberdeau.
Hmm.
But like you, a lot of people told me, don't overlook the trade, Caesar. This guy is really good. This guy is a guy you're gonna love on your team. He's a gritty guy. His dad was one of the best.
Right, right.
So it took me a couple days to kind of like take it all in, because
Sure.
I did love Huberto, but I was like, you know what, we need to win a Stanley Cup, and every year in the playoffs, I hated to say it, but Jonathan Huberto would disappear.
He disappeared, exactly.
And he wasn't doing what we needed him to do in the playoffs to get over the hump.
That's not his
And
style.
it's not. And I kind of wanted to ask you too, what do you think of the transition of the team over the last few years that changed the culture? Not just from adding Mathew Tkachuk, but what changed here? What did it all start?
Well, we were 100% offense. We were winning all those games. You look down by 3 goals and you come back and you win. You can't score 6 goals in the playoffs every game. You can't fall behind by 3 goals and expect to come back in the playoffs. We were a regular season juggernaut because we had all the offensive firepower. But how many breakaways did we give up? How many odd man rushes did we give up? And then I think once they settled in and Paul Maurice Paul Maurice really changed that culture. He showed them like, okay, if you guys are going to go in, you're going to forecheck and you're going to make it impossible to play against. You guys are going to be successful. And it took a while for that to gel. When he first came, I'm like, well, what are we doing? But I think the players saw it in the playoffs, like, okay, this works. So they put the work in during the regular season now.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing too after Andrew Burnett took over for Coach Q after that
Right.
whole incident in Chicago. Uh, because Coach Q, I was like, this is the guy we need. He's won
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Cups, and when that whole incident happened, um, don't get me wrong, Andrew Burnett did a fantastic job keeping the team in sync, getting them to not listen to all the negative talk outside or
Sure.
inside the rink too. Um, but his style of play wasn't going to do it in the playoffs,
Right.
and I didn't really know much of Paul Maurice. I knew he made the Stanley Cup once or twice, but he didn't end up winning it. So, but I was like, okay, he brings a toughness to this team that they need. And in the beginning, it wasn't all roses, right?
No, not at all.
And I think he said it too after the game, game 7. He's like, I remember seeing a sign, fire Paul Maurice. And he's like, that's one sign I'll always remember because, you got to take it in. You got to enjoy the moment. You never know when your last moment is. But he changed the culture. It took some time, and it took some time for the players to get acclimated. I
Mm-hmm.
think adding the defenseman like Mikola
Yeah.
has helped us so much,
Sure.
um, especially after losing Gudas, because I thought he was one of our best defensemen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, just adding OEL.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Lawrence was part of that team, even though he didn't play until towards the end of the season, but ended up helping us
I
towards
mean,
the end.
the guy I really think did an unbelievable job was Stenlin. He
That's
killed
one guy.
penalties.
I think
You
that's
know,
one guy you and I kind of like are missing
that's
on
the
this
guy
team.
I miss. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
The penalty kills, just winning the face-offs too.
yeah, he was dominant.
He was very dominant, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see what Bill Zito does this during the trade deadline. Do you see them making any moves?
They have to pick up a defensive defenseman. I know there's not a lot out there. We don't have a lot to trade because we still don't have a lot of picks or prospects, but somehow he has to figure a way to get because I don't think Schmidt's the guy, that's going to be the replacement for Montour or OEL. He's just right now he's okay, but it feels like everybody on the defense is just okay besides Forsling.
Right.
Um, Ekblad actually is stepping up to be surprisingly good on the power play. But yeah, the way we thought it was going to work out, with Boquist on defense. I mean, he's not there anymore, and it just seems like they can't find that one guy to shut teams down. So
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Bennett because this is his last year. Do you wait till the end of his contract and let him walk, or do
I don't
you?
think you can let him walk, but I think now that the salary cap's going up, and we're going to take Ekblad's going to be off the books, and Bobrovsky's off the books next year. So you're going to have extra money. You should be able to pay him. Um, it's just I don't know if they're going to wait till the end of the year to do it because once that happens, everyone's going to throw money at him, and then you're going to wind up overpaying.
And I think
So
what I was hearing too, his agent loves to have his players
go to free
go to
agency.
free agency.
Yep.
And that's where they make their money. If they make their
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
he makes his money. So,
Sure. Yeah.
and with the salary cap going up, they're going to be like, okay, salary cap's going up. You're going to get more money going here, or they're going to offer you more. Why don't you just wait and sit it out?
But
So
the other thing, he's not really setting the world on fire this year either. Now
no,
he's getting a little hot, but he was in really cold for a while. So I think his stock went down a little bit, but he's a playoff player. He's not, you know, he's playoff Benny.
and that's kind of where I go, where I kind of see him. Um, because a lot of the times you trade a player who you don't think is going to be who you're not going to have for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that short term, the locker room presence, the the way that he gels with the players, his teammates, and all that, I think that's more important than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
The team chemistry. Everybody loves Bennett. Um, and we saw it last year too against
Sure.
Boston when he ended up getting suspended for a few of those games. His presence on the ice is a big difference.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you think about it, it was Bennett and then also Lusterinen. When
Yep.
Lusterinen went down at the end against Vegas and he couldn't play in the finals, we looked like a different team. I mean, it's like every guy fits into a perfect spot in that team. That's why I was worried when Montour and Lomberg left because those guys are such big personalities that I didn't know if somebody else could fill that role. But I mean, it looks like he just kind of rolls whoever they puts in there seems to work out.
Yeah,
No
and I
sick,
thought,
not so much, but
yeah, I was gonna say I'm not too impressed with Nosek, but
yeah.
he did miss a lot of time during training camp and during the season. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be it's gonna be very interesting to see what Bill Zito does,
Right.
especially during the trade deadline. Um, what do we have here? Kind of going into being a Panther fan for a long time, we all seen the season ticket prices go increase a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Um, we all seen this coming, as when you start winning, everything's going to start going up. So, what did you think? Has this had any effect on, or what do you think of the increase of the prices?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you win the Stanley Cup, the prices are definitely going to go up, and we had the lowest tickets in the league. I mean, it would have been nice if they did it in stages, or if they maybe said, "Hey, here's what's going to happen in the next 3 years. Pay now, and you could fall into this bracket." Or if you make, if you renew for 3 years, you
Right.
can be at this level. Give some kind of incentive to do it, but getting a 40% increase, that always hurts.
And I think fans were more particularly upset of the way how they told the fans about it. It's like, "Hey,
Mm.
surprise,"
Right, right, right.
rather
Well,
than, notifying us like, "Expect this to happen. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do
sure.
that." And, you know, um, if they would have handled it a little bit better, I think we wouldn't have been as
Well,
that
I'm
upset.
surprised they announced it the week before they did the open meeting with Zito and ownership at the arena. I thought they would have done it like after it because you knew people were going to bring it up at the meeting. But Caldwell stepped up. He said, "Hey, this isn't a price increase; it's a reboot. Like we're putting ourselves to where we should be. We should have been years ago." He goes, "We've been giving away stuff for years."
Right.
Now we're at a point we actually have a product people want. You know, unfortunately, you kind of said it as, "Hey, we got a waiting list of people. If you don't like it, we got somebody else that'll take your seats." And I get it; it's a business, and that's what happens when you start winning.
And yeah, I mean, and then you look all around the league and all throughout the other stadiums or the other arenas, we're still one of the lowest in season ticket prices. So, um, I
I
mean,
didn't realize till I got my renewal thing, and I was at a tailgate, and someone goes, "Oh, how many years you've been a fan or a season ticket holder?" It's like, "Oh, 20." And he's like, "Oh, you got free parking," and I'm like, "There's free parking?" And he's like, "Yeah, 20 years you get free parking." I'm like, "What?" And
what?
I looked at my invoice. I'm like, "Wait a minute!" I called my ticket rep. I'm like, "Hey," she goes, "Yeah, next year is your 20th." She goes, "You won't have to pay for parking anymore." I'm like, "Well,
Okay.
that's a perk I had no idea about." Which you know,
Well,
so it's
I got 50, no, I see, 13 years left. So,
but yeah, so I mean they take care of like that, and they also like all the original season ticket holders. They all got rings. I mean, like stuff like that. I feel like they do take care of the fans more than some other organizations.
right.
Because my brother's a season ticket holder for the Devils, and he doesn't get anything. I mean, when I'm telling him like, oh, we went to the high five tunnel and we were on the ice and we did this and fan fest, and he's like, he goes, I met a player one time,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's and they're expensive, so it's
And
not
New
like,
Jersey Devil fans, they're real into their hockey team.
mm.
I have a friend of mine who lives in Atlanta. He's always talking crap about the Devils or about the Panthers every time we play each other.
Right.
But it's crazy how our organization has done a really good job with our fans, especially the last couple of seasons. What is the biggest difference that you've noticed between this ownership, Venny Viola and Doug Sifu, than the previous ownerships?
Well, considering I couldn't tell you one time that I actually met the previous ownership. Um, but I've literally, as I'm walking around the concourse, um, Doug Seafood just comes up to you and just starts talking. And then uh, I think I was out front of the game, and a woman comes up. She's like, "Oh, I'm Mrs. Viola. I wanted to introduce myself. I always see you at the games." And I'm like, "Mrs. Viola, like Vinny Viola's wife?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And she goes, "You sit right in front of me now. Like I moved my seats. I didn't realize I'm 2 rows in front of the owner's box." And
Wow.
she's like, "Oh," she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I like to make." She goes, "Every now and then I'll make cookies and I'll pass them out to you guys because I like baking." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Bring it on, let's go." And I'm like, she goes, "Anything I can?" Then she, gave me her condolences and anything I can do for you guys, blah blah blah. And I'm like, she didn't have to, do any of that. I'm like, but it was really nice. And then now Bryce Hollwig, the COO, he walks around all the time. He brought the Stanley Cup down to one of my. I sell bakery supply ingredients,
Oh,
so I
cool.
sell to like donut shops and bakeries. And one of my customers in Las Olas is supplies donuts to the Panthers organization for the games. And Bryce brought the Stanley Cup to his restaurant, so I was able to take a picture of the Stanley Cup at this guy's place on Las Olas with my wife. So that was really cool. So
That
now
is really awesome.
every time I see Bryce in the hallway, we chat. So it's like they're not just owners now; they're fans.
They feel like family. And,
Yeah.
kind of piggyback to your story there. Um, Maybe a year after Venny Viola bought the team, this was back when we had Venny Tkachuk, Nick
Mm-hmm.
Bukestad. Um, I went to a Rangers game with one of my good friends, Heimel, and we used to have season ticket right on the club level, right in center ice, which were the best seats in the house. Um, and one day I went into the elevator and I turned around and I noticed it was Benny Viola. I'm like, holy crap, you're Benny Viola. And he's like, you must be Caesar. I was like, wait, what? How do you know me? And he goes, "Everybody knows you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm your biggest fan, man. Thank you so much for like buying the team. You're doing a great job. I can't wait till we finally lift the Stanley Cup." And he goes, "Oh, you're very welcome. Here, I'm gonna take you downstairs." And this was during the intermission of a Rangers game.
Oh,
He literally took me into the locker room during the first intermission.
wow.
I was like in shock. Like he
That
didn't
is
have to do
awesome.
that. I
Hmm.
went in there, the players are all getting like, taped up, just resting, just the smell of the locker room kind of brought memories back because I used to coach high school football.
Right, right.
And it was just an unbelievable moment. And Nick Bukestad was injured that year in the beginning. And he happens to take me into the training room and he goes, he's like, "Here, come on, let's go see how Nick Bukestad's doing." I was like, "No way." And I just we roll up in there and he's like, Nick Butestead in there just talking the shit and just, like normal human beings. It was the most
Yeah, yeah,
unbelievable thing I've ever experienced in my life.
yeah.
And for owners to do that, that goes to show you that this is more than just a game. This is a
Sure.
family. And that goes a long way. And they rightfully deserved winning the cup last year. For
Yeah.
them to hoist it and to see his wife out there on the ice with their little
Mhm.
dog, it just goes to tell you how big this is. This is bigger than just hockey itself.
Well, to piggyback on that, the night before the parade, I was down in Fort Lauderdale. We were staying at the hotel across the street. So we were at the elbow room. It's like midnight. Everybody's partying. And all of a sudden, my phone goes off and it's my ticket rep. And she's like, "Hey, are you here?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm here." And she's like, "You got the suit?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And she goes, "You want to be in the parade?" And I was like, yeah, let's go. And she's like, I said, "You for real?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah." She goes, "Yeah." I thought because the owner said, you know, the fan bony. And I was like, "Oh, let's go." So I go, "What do I got to do?" And she's like, "Just be at this address at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." And I was gonna literally get to the beach at like 5 and get a spot for the stage. So
Right?
I'm like, so I can sleep in, and I could still go. And she's like, "Oh, yeah." And we got to
That's
the
so
thing,
cool.
and we met in a hotel lobby, and it was all the TV analysts. So Lindsay was there, and Goldie, and she's like, "Get to have something to drink." I'm in air conditioning. I'm like, "Oh, this is freaking ridiculous." And the mayor's there and all the councilmen, and then the owners come by, and I'm like, "Thank you so much. This is amazing." So it was me and the young kid that always carries the Stanley Cup over his head, shirtless.
Yeah, I see it. That's
Yep.
so cool.
And then the other little boy that always chugged the soda. Um, but yeah, it
I
was.
love
I
that
mean,
kid.
yeah, it was great. I mean, it was, and I got to tell you, like the parade was obviously insane, and the weather
One of
was.
the best experiences of my
Oh,
life,
it was
honestly.
crazy. I mean, even though the weather was horrendous, I mean, I was using my cape just to shield the kids from the rain because it was coming sideways, and we're like, "What are we doing? This is crazy." But
It
people
was
just kept coming and coming,
it
and
was
then.
crazy because, like, and now that you say that, my friend and I, Kelly, she brought her tent. Nobody
Mhm.
else brought a tent,
That
but
was
we
smart.
knew we were like, this is South Florida. We know
Yeah,
how
yeah,
South Florida gets during the summer, right?
yep,
It's
yep.
either sunny one minute and then it rains the next minute. And we were smart. We brought the tent, and like when it started pouring, everybody just started rushing underneath. We're like, "Oh no, back up a little bit."
Right,
Right?
right.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and we had the double deck in front of us was Kulikov and Bennett, and I think it was Verhage, and these guys. We were waiting. They got that the lightning delay, so they're just sitting there pounding beers. I can't believe how much Kulikov drank before he even got to the stage. I was like, "There's no way this guy's going to be conscious by the time this is over." But
Oh
and then
my
they
god.
look over at
So,
us, and we're
who
all
do you think
flexing to
drank
him.
more? Kulikov, Bukestad, or not Bukestad, I'm sorry. Kulikov or Kachuk? Because
I
Kachuk
think
he was doing pretty much a lot
he
of
was doing
drinking.
pretty well, but Cooley had 2 beers, and he would just open both of them, tilt his head back, and he was just guzzling. I'm like, this guy's out of his mind. It was like what 10:30 in the morning. I'm like, he's never gonna make it through this. But then he got up on the stage and he's got his kids. He's holding his kids on his lap, and I'm like, that guy can drink.
That is
Yeah,
so
they
awesome.
even threw a couple beers our way because we were just sitting there like they're like, "All right, we got a delay. You want something to drink?" We're like, "Yeah, let's go." But when I got all the way down, and I can't tell you how many times as I'm going through, people are like, "They did it for Dom," and I'm like, "Thank God it was raining because I was just bawling like every time somebody said that."
Wow.
And I was like, it was so cool. And then I found out that NBC was running the piece about Dom while the rain delay was happening. So they were like, somewhere in the parade, Muscle Fan's actually on one of the floats, and here's his story. And I was like, oh, because I was getting text all over, like, what is going on? And they're like,
Wow.
we're on TV right now, and I'm like, oh, this is freaking amazing.
And I'm gonna link the story below so that way people can watch it, because I did find it on YouTube. So
Oh, cool.
for everybody, if they want to watch the story, I'll put it on the link below. But yeah, we have the pictures here of you on the Famboni, and as you were driving by, I think I saw you. I was like, "Yo, let's go, let's go!" And I'm sure you've seen so many people you couldn't recognize really who was out there, but it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Now, mind
Mhm.
you, I'm in an electric wheelchair. I didn't care. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not leaving. Okay. They're gonna have to drag my ass out of here until this parade is canceled.
Well, I
Um,
saw that when Paul Maurice came out there, he gave you a
oh
hug, and that was
man,
amazing.
that was probably one of the most unforgettable moments of my life.
Yeah.
Paul Maurice's son actually started that whole thing.
Oh, really?
He was on
Was
top
that
of
the
the
one that
bus.
came and sprayed you with the Truly
So
or what?
I don't know who the guy was at the bottom who gave me the goggles, but
Mhm.
his son was on top of the bus and he had 2 beers in his hand. And I was pointing, I'm like, yeah, let's go. He points back at me and he goes, here. And he throws it at me,
Right.
totally misses, hits the top of the canopy, drops on the ground, and it explodes, spinning in circles. And he goes, hold on 1 second. So he runs downstairs from the party bus, comes down, and he brings me the beer, hands it to me, and I'm like, I don't drink anymore, but you know what? I want to celebrate with you guys. So I take it and I start opening it up, and the guy in front of me, he's got the goggles. He goes, "You want the goggles?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go, let's go." So he puts the
That
goggles on me. I just start pouring it like I'm celebrating. It was
was
just an
awesome.
amazing time. My friend in the back's got the other beer that hit the ground. She's sitting there chugging it and starts pouring it on me. 2 minutes like or maybe a few seconds later, you see this tall guy, old guy with glasses. I thought it was just some random fan coming out to give me a
Right.
hug. But when he hugs me, I notice I'm like, holy shit, that's Paul Maurice. And he leans up to me and he hugs me. He goes, we're effing champions. Let's go. And I was just like, thank you, man. Thank you. He was
I
just
mean,
he
that
didn't
guy's
have to
that
do that. Just
is the coolest.
and I think his wife was out standing like outside the bus, like at the door, just smiling ear to ear.
Right?
The whole family was just incredible. That whole experience I'll never forget. And I
Well,
truly,
he
truly
was
thank
right. He
him.
said, he goes, everyone that we know, everyone that we love is happy right now at the same time in the same place. So, yeah, he's just the whole experience was just insane. Like, it's just when I got to the end, I jumped off the guy's like, we're not getting any further. You might as well get off. So I got off and I jump up. That's where the edge where the stage was, but there's there's thousands of people on the beach, all looking to where the buses are. And that's where I'm standing. So they're all going crazy. So I stand up on the seawall and I'm flexing. I'm ringing the cowbell. I'm like, let's go,
There we go.
and I'm just out of my mind. And I'm like, the crowd's going out of their. I'm like, they're going bananas. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I look behind me,
And no
Kachuk standing
less.
behind me.
In the rain, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm like, I thought it was all for me. And I look behind me, Kachuk's standing behind me. I'm like, hey. And he just looks up and he goes, best day of my fucking life, brother. And I'm like, amen to that. So yeah,
Dude,
it was
that's
just
awesome. That is
crazy.
so great. That's great, man. And like, oh man, what an experience. Let's kind of go in here. What what did it feel like to finally take the picture with the cup?
Oh,
Like,
it was what was cool is I took the picture with the cup with my son and my wife I think it was during the
During the
playoffs the year
NHL
before.
All-State? Was it
We
like
went
the
to the
All-Star?
finals.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, when they had it, and Gudis was there. It was like a game, a
Wasn't it
pre-playoff.
the NHL All the playoffs? Okay,
Oh
okay,
yeah, yeah, it was the All Star. That's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay.
And so it was, so we took the picture, and I'm like, all right, that's cool, but you're taking a picture with the cup. You didn't actually have any experiences, kind of pulling along and getting to the finals and winning the whole thing. Not that we won it, but it kind of felt like we won it. So this, when you get to see the players and you get to see it was just like, it was really cool. I mean, it was sad. That's why I always keep Dom with me and everywhere I go. So in every one of these pictures, he'll always be with us, whether he's here or not. He'll always be part of the family. So I was just happy that me and my wife had a chance to get those pictures. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Um, that is really special, and especially when I saw the cup, I saw it back when the NHL All Star because that was a great experience too.
Mhm.
Them doing it on the beach, having those
Right.
activities.
Yep. Yep.
I got to meet PK Subban, um, and it was just all around experience. It was really fun. But to see the cup with the Panthers' names etched on it
Hmm.
was, I don't know, it just hit different, right? It
Yep.
just
Yep.
like this is ours now. They can't take it away from us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was. I mean, just the fact that we're up 3-0, and then you're like, oh, that's it. And we were a little cocky, and then you're like, up, you lose one, up two, and then you're starting to get a little nervous, and then you lost the third one. I'm like, and we didn't just lose. I mean, we got destroyed in some of those games, and I'm like, uh-oh, uh-oh, this is real. I was like, this is gonna be. I couldn't imagine if we had to come back and be the only team that's ever lost it, being up 3-0. Like, I think the team could never have come back from that. Like, you're not mentally, after going to back cups, to come back from that type of disappointment. I don't think it would have set the franchise back 10 years.
Oh,
I don't think
for
they could have ever bounced back from that situation. So I'm so happy that it happened. It made it even better that it happened in game 7.
especially at home. I
Oh
don't
my
know
God.
how
Yeah.
much I cried, with my friend and I, Shauna. She's a good friend of mine, and her husband were there. They've been through it with me too. Because I don't know if you ended up seeing the story that they did on me, during the parade. I ended up being on cardiac arrest last year during the playoff
Yes.
run, so I didn't get to experience that run till
Right.
the end. So for me, I mean, after waking up from the coma, the first thing I literally said, my mom said was, "Let's go Panthers." So, so that goes to tell you like where my mind was,
Right, right.
and you know, so kind of going into why I started the show, I kind of want people to know that how sports have gotten me through a lot of the tough times. How has sports in general gotten you and your family through the tough times? Because I've seen on your Instagram where Dominic ended up playing baseball and
Mhm.
just not just hockey but sports in general. How does that help you alleviate from all the negative going around?
Well, it's obviously it's an escape. I mean, you get to step out of real life and you just kind of enjoy, you know, your favorite team. But we had them in the Miracle League baseball, and it's an organization where their slogan is everybody deserves to be able to play baseball. So every kid had a home run. And my thing with him was, when he was first in the wheelchair, and I'm like, how are we going to do this? How we run the bases and stuff? So I would just run as fast as I could, pushing him. And a couple of times I went around third base, and I was up on two wheels at one point. And I remember everybody in the stands was like, oh my God, oh my God. And I came home, and I tried not to make eye contact with my wife because I knew it was coming. And I guess she goes, so we took that turn a little tight there. Like, And meanwhile, he's all smiles. I'm like, well, he didn't seem to mind it, you know. So that was our thing. And then I said, you know what? I go, I'd like to see if I can, if he could walk it. So we started where I'd stop at third base, and me and one of the coaches would grab an arm, and he'd walk the last, 45, 50 feet from third base to home. And it was like when he hit home plate, everybody was in tears, everybody was screaming. And
I saw
then
that video today. It just
it
brought
was
such a
so
smile to my face. It was
right.
just like, like nothing else matters at that moment. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
And it's
just
to some people,
his
it
experience.
seems like it's not a big deal, but walking 10 feet, it's huge. I mean, and
It is.
I noticed other parents started to take their kids out of the wheelchairs and started to try to do the same thing. So I was like, it made you feel like, all right, you know what? We're in no rush here. So let's do whatever you can to try to, make your kid happy, enjoy every moment. And it's the same thing with the hockey thing. Like, if I don't think if the playoffs didn't happen the way they happened, and it was 2 months to the day he passed away, that they won. That was game seven. 2 months exactly. They won the cup. I don't think if that whole playoff run didn't happen, I don't think I could have gotten through that situation, because I needed something else to kind of focus on. And the whole thing with the pictures and the buttons and the news thing, it's I wanted people to know who he was, and I wanted people to always remember who he was. So now I have something to look back at and said, this is, yes, they won the Stanley Cup, but it was so much more. It was an experience that I was able to kind of use that platform to have thousands and thousands of people that never would have met him know who he was.
And
So,
that's really amazing. And that's why I started this platform. I want to, get stories like yours out and get to people to know that, my life too was never easy. Sports has always been an escape for me to, you know, kind of like mentally get away from the pain that I'm going through.
mhm.
Whether it's me being in bed with a broken bone or me being in the hospital, sports was always there for me, and it was kind of a therapy. And it's not just about winning or losing, because it's about family. It's about an escape from everything else, and it's a great thing that we love to do as fans, and as you as a father, and I'm sure your mom, your wife too. Taking Dominic to those games was an escape from just out of the norm of everyday things.
Right. It's no the
Something that you
doctor's
get to
appointments
experience.
and the
Yeah.
therapy and
And
yeah.
every time, like you said, they would score a goal, he'd have a big smile on his face, and
Mhm.
those moments are so precious that you can't take those away from him.
I mean, you understand more than anyone that it's the small goals that are the big things. Like, our goal eventually got to the point was, I just want him to smile once a day. We got to that where if I could do something to make him smile, make him laugh, that day mission accomplished. So there's I mean, everyone has goals. I mean, some kids, people want their kids to be in college and get a good job, but at certain points everyone has their own thing. That's why I never judge. I mean, I love the fact that you go to every game. And I know it's not easy, because I know what it's like in those elevators and trying to get out of there, and people don't respect certain boundaries. I appreciate the fact that you put yourself out there and
Thank you.
are doing something like this to have a platform. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I used to take 3 city buses to work, and then after work, used to take the bus to the arenas to watch the games. So,
Mhm.
nothing really ended up stopping me. If I had a goal or I had something in mind, I would always do everything I can to accomplish that goal. And I think my parents did a wonderful job of not allowing me to have any boundaries and allowing me to do what I wanted to do and accomplish my dreams. And it
Mhm.
seems like you and your wife have done such a great job with Dominic and allowing him to enjoy every moment, enjoy the games with you and all the fans and getting to have that one time, even if it was for 3 hours. Those 3 hours were probably one of the best times of his life.
Right.
But
Agreed.
perfect. So I got a question here from a couple of friends that wanted to ask you.
Hmm.
Here's a question from my good friend Shauna, who's also a season ticket holder with me. Um, she's a really good friend of mine, and she's asked, should the Stanley Cup, should the Stanley Cup or one of the games, should they try to have a halftime show like the Super Bowl,
I don't
like
think you should
during
have
the
a
final
halftime
game?
show, but I do think, well, I feel like we last year, I feel like we missed the boat on like the pregame, you
I was
know.
gonna ask you about that because they
Yeah,
did it for like the first two games,
right.
but after that there was nothing,
Right.
and there was no concert before, there was no
Exactly.
after party, you
Because
know.
remember the year before they did it where there was a watch party, they had Flow Rider out there. I mean, there was all it was a nice event, and then all of a sudden it just kind of I don't know if it's because they were worried about weather or what it was, but the other
I
problem
mean,
was they didn't
it's
tell
South
you
Florida.
anything.
I mean, they
Like,
did have the parade, but yeah.
right. But they never told you anything. Like they didn't
Mhm.
say, "Okay, this is what we're going to be doing. This is the performer." It was almost like they had that random rapper from Australia or whatever at one of the things, and I'm like, "Okay." And then I was like, I felt like they missed the boat on that because that's the kind of thing you see on national TV a lot. Like in Toronto, you see out front they have that courtyard. Everyone watches the game on the jumbotron.
Right.
Same thing with Tampa. They have that outside area where everyone hangs out.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we do that on the outside of the arena? I thought that would have just been another cool thing where people are like, oh my God, look at the people in Florida. Not only are they inside packed, they're
I mean,
outside.
and we seen it in Edmonton when the
Yeah.
games went over there. They had a
Yep.
concert. Every
Exactly.
single game,
Yep.
and we only had it one or two games, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I
that
think we missed the boat on that one. I don't know what the story was. I don't know if they couldn't book anybody or what, but that was the only part I
Venny,
was
if
like,
you're listening, Doug Seafood, if you guys are listening, let's get some parties out there before the
let's
games.
go. Let's go. Nice jumbotron out there, or just
Right?
projected on the side of the arena. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. One
Yep.
more question from one of my good friends, Cameron, which is Shauna's husband. Last season, Reinhardt was 2 goals away shy from the Pavel Bure season scoring record. He's under contract until 2032. Is there a chance he breaks that record? This season, he's on pace for 44.
Yeah.
Good
I don't.
question.
I don't know. I don't think he's going to do it this year. But the way he is, like, I thought it was going to be one of those. He had a great year, and okay, he's going to cool off a little bit. That guy, power play, shorthanded. I mean, he's always scoring goals. I mean, he doesn't really. Maybe there's a game here and there he doesn't score, but consistently, he's within every 3 games, he's going to have a couple goals. So I think for sure he's going to be the guy. And the fact that they locked him up at a reasonable cost is just insane. I mean, same thing with Chucky, same thing with Barkey. The contracts those guys signed, if they would have waited and put themselves on the market, they would have been getting 10 million a year.
I was gonna say because like if they would have waited this year or this next year, I think Reinhardt gets a bigger contract.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think we're paying Reinhardt. We got a bargain for him for the
Oh,
way that he's
absolutely.
playing on this team, and with the way the salary cap is going up next year and the year after. We got these guys for the next couple years long term. So I'm really excited for next year. And I'm still excited for this year, although we don't have that much wiggle room. We'll see what Zito does during the trade deadline. But we
Remember,
have these guys,
everybody we have is 25, 26 years old. They're all in their prime.
right?
So, I mean, you're all you really need is one good draft pick, like a defenseman or another young kid to bring up, and you're going to be set. If Knight takes over for Bob like he's supposed to
Yep.
and plays like he can, then there's really no drop off. There's no reason why this team can't be good for the next 5, 6 years.
And Knight's one of my favorite players. I'm hoping, and he's starting to play better during these last
Mhm.
couple games,
Yeah.
and we saw it last year too. He was in Charlotte. As the year got on, he got better and better and better and
Right.
better, and he had a good run towards the end of the season. And unfortunately, his team didn't really help him in the playoffs last year. But
Mm.
he, I think he had like 4 shutouts last year, which was really good in Charlotte. And I think he's capable of not being the number one yet, but
Right.
I think he can be the 1A, 1B
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. Well, we're always
Um,
good at finding goalies too. I mean, you look
yeah,
around the
and
league, our
Rob
goalies that we
Tallis,
let go, they're all
yeah,
over the place.
and Rob
Markstrom.
Tallis is still one of the best goalie
Yep.
coaches. We've had him since I can remember,
Sure.
so it's always good to have him around too.
Yep. Yep.
So I want to ask you about this. We're kind of gonna pull this up real quick. Hold on, let me see. All right. What were you thinking here?
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go, Panthers. Let's go. Woo! 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 All right. Okay. Oh, hey now. Hey now. Okay, well. Come on. One more. Good. Oh. Here. Let's go. Woo! 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 Let's go, Cats! Woo! Let's go, Panthers!
So,
Oh my gosh,
fun
that was
fact.
great.
Fun
That was
fact that I found out that was in Nashville on Broadway, and they played last year. And I dressed, wore the suit, and I'm like, let's go ride a bull. We're in Nashville, and the girl working, it was like, what is going on here? And I couldn't stay on the thing for longer than like 5, 6 seconds, and I'm like, what is going on? What's the trick? She's like, you got to have some traction with your thighs. She goes, that suit, you got nothing to hang on to. You just keep falling off, but you just let me keep
oh
jumping back up
man,
there. So,
that
but
was
yeah.
awesome.
And then so that's going to be our yearly pilgrimage. We're actually going, me and my buddy Scott, that I have season tickets with, are going on the 25th this year. And it's like 2 weeks away. So we'll be in Nashville and we'll be wearing the suit again. And I'm going to try to ride the
You
bull again.
definitely got to post that on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. No
So
doubt. No doubt.
for everybody that wants to follow him, make sure you guys follow him on Instagram. His handle down there is at Panthers Muscle Fan. You can find him there and get to look at all the pictures he has with Dominic and don't be afraid if you see him out at the arena to take a picture with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Great
love that.
guy, great guy. He's one of a kind, and I really appreciate you being on the show here,
Thank you.
and can't wait to see you again this season and in the
Yep. Yep.
playoffs. Um,
Absolutely.
is there anything else you want to let our fans know? Anybody else know about you or
Um,
Dominic?
no, I mean, I pretty much put myself out there. So I think everybody that follows me or seen me around knows I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I'm a big hugger. So if you see me,
I'm gonna give
give
you
a
a big
hug.
hug next time I see you. All right.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, I mean, no, it's been great. I mean, the last couple of seasons have been ridiculous. We had that the Verizon commercial that I did last year during the
That's
playoffs.
right.
Yeah, they actually
Let me see. I think I have it here.
they
Let's
had
see
like
if
an
we can pull it
ultimate
up real
fan
quick
thing.
here. Let's see.
I'm fired up, bit nervous,
On game day, I gotta admit, I'm pretty superstitious. I keep everything in threes. Little Panther hat trick, or as we like to say, rat trick. Always the same 3 ingredients in my smoothie. 3 p.m. Time for my lucky movie. Might be a little crazy, but I gotta have the exact same parking spot every game. This is my home, my team. Hundreds of hours of memories here. The arena going crazy, fans, players, it's madness. I like to share game day with everyone. That's why I got Verizon's new My Plan. I can't control the game, but I can pick the perks I want and save on every one. Yeah, that was
awesome.
that was an insane
when
day.
did they do that?
It was game
When did
1 of the finals against Vegas, and they had a
Okay.
contest. They just reached out and said, "We're looking for the ultimate fan," and I sent them a picture, and next thing you know, they put me on a Zoom call, and I don't think they expected me. I showed up like this on the Zoom call, and they were like, "Whoa!" And I was just like, and I was really in character. I mean, I was ringing bells, I was wooing, and they were like, "Wow, the energy!" And I was like, "They were like, would you do a thing? We want to follow the ultimate fan like for the day, a playoff day." Okay, and so they actually okay, they rented a house in South Beach. And I drove down there 7 a.m, and all day, all I did was throw. Okay, I want you to throw cornhole. I want you to shoot pucks in the driveway. You're gonna make a smoothie, like the most ridiculous things. Make your bed, and I'm like, all right. So I'm in this house, and I walk in, and it's obviously not my house. Gorgeous place in South Beach, and there's framed pictures of me all over the house, and I'm like, what is this? And they're like, well, we
Is
got to
this
make
my
it look
house
like
now?
it's. Yeah, I know, right? Did I win this? And they were like, well, we got to make it look like you live here. So we pulled your pictures off social media, printed them out, and put them in frames. I'm like, this is
That's so
amazing.
cool.
And just the whole day was that. And they had me makeup room, and they had a whole swag table, and they were like, so we've got you shoes, shorts, clog, all this different stuff. And I went through my closet, and they're like, whatever. And when we're done, whatever you want, you can have. And I was just like, okay, I'm taking all of it. I was like, and then they're like, we're going to jump in your car and follow you to the arena. So I was like, all right. But that last scene where we're doing the flag out in front of the arena was like their big shot. And, the suit's not very, let's say, cool, so I'm outside of the arena and I am dying out there. I'm like, can we please go inside? I'm like, it's been like an hour and a half of me with this flag. And I'm like, because they are like, we don't want any people in the shot. I'm like, well, people are walking into the arena. Like, how are we going to stop that? And eventually they got one moment where nobody was around. And I said later, I'm like, listen, I go, the commercial is all about me doing everything in threes.
Yeah.
I usually have 3 beers before I go in the game. Can I please just have a beer? And she's like, well, she goes, here's my credit card. Go inside, get yourself whatever you want. And so I was like, all right. And then, the rest of the night, they just hung out there all night, watched the game. So it was a fabulous experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that was during the playoffs 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. That was the finals. Yeah.
Cool.
So I wish it would have ended a little bit better. We would have beat Vegas, but,
I'm kind of glad we won it last year. Just with everything that happened, things
sure.
happen for a reason,
Yep.
And I'm sure Dominic was a big part of that reason too. So,
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to see you at the game. So,
No, that's awesome.
Thanks everyone. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. We'll definitely see you next time.
Can I give one cheer on the way out?
Yes, please do. Let's go, Panthers.
Woo! Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Woo!